Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice. On mandate, you get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing it with a friend. Rob Schneider in studio.
Yeah, baby.
Always great to see Rob. Rob's got live dates. He didn't come in to plug, but he came in to talk. But he's still got live dates at robschneider.com. It's going to be all over the country. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you. Good to be back. I feel like, I guess the Jews, my dad would call it a mikvah. It's like a cleanse when I see you.
A mitzvah.
Mikvah.
Mikvah is not a mitzvah?
No, mitzvah is different, like a bar mitzvah. A mikvah is like a cleansing bath. Like a woman has her period, she take a mikvah. Like I take a mikvah.
Like that mikvah.
I take a mikvah. Yeah, but I clean it out.
But doesn't a mitzvah just mean good fortune?
Yeah, mitzvah's different though.
Okay.
Mitzvah's different than the mikvah. Mikvah, you need a mikvah. You know, you hang out with the goyim too much, you need a mikvah.
Yeah, it's like a cleansing.
A cleanse, yeah. When I'm with you, I feel cleansed. I got to tell you, I got more people who would listen to us when we were getting into it, very hot and heavy the last couple of years. I would pull over on the side of the road, driving somewhere, and we would get into a conversation, and people were so grateful that we were talking about this. And I think, where are the apologies? Where are the repercussions for these assholes who locked us down and the teachers' unions? Did they just get away with everything? That's what tyranny is when people in power do horrible things and they don't have any consequences for their actions.
Well, it's whoever has the scribes who are writing the history are the people that get to move forward with impunity. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember, Dawson, we played it on the show. Maybe we did, but so there's two things. I mean, there's a couple of stratas.
So good to be back. I just want to say, this is so good.
There's a couple of stratas of insanity. First strata is mask up in between bites. The second that phrase, the second those words were put together, and they've never been put together in maybe at a Klan rally, maybe at a Klan barbecue. Not since a Klan barbecue has the phrase mask up in between bites been uttered.
Yeah.
But the second we heard that, we all should have went, oh, it's off. Oh, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, this does nothing. Okay, it's zero. In between bites, masking up. Okay, so that's the first level of nutty. The second level of nutty is, shutting the beaches and the schools and everything.
And the playgrounds.
While we're going out to dinner. And then the third one is when you hear Eric Swalwell, who I saw on, and I can't remember where we played this clip. I played it, but a week and a half ago, where he's like, listen, let me tell you who we are. The Democratic Party. This, when COVID blows in, we're opening Main Street, we're opening schools, we're opening churches. So the third part is an insane rewriting, revisionist, insanity version of history. Right. That is basically like you being morbidly obese in high school and explaining you were all state in the high jump. Like, that's how insane this sounds. But that's where we're at now. Now we're into the freedom part, where Gavin Newsom is the guy who locked down every school, is discussing freedom at every turn. So
and discussing how there's no freedom in Florida. There was no freedom. Right. He wants to impose the freedom that they have in California.
Well, I like my freedom a little more specific, Gavin, because your announcements of freedom to love is that's too vague for me. That's his kind of freedom is shut the schools, shut the churches, shut the beaches, but you have the freedom to love. Which I do believe you have even in like Alabama.
Right.
But all right, we have the freedom to love, which is never helped. Though, do we have this? We have this clip. This is the part. This is the part that I'm most fascinated.
And how long ago was this?
A week and a half. The revisionist part's the part I like.
I see you. Thanks so much for doing this. In this call that McCarthy held last week, he argued that House Republicans should focus their energy on other matters. What do you think? Is this going to happen? And what do Democrats do in the House about this?
We are pro keeping the government open, and that's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. They like to rule, we like to govern. when it comes to ruling, they want to rule your body. They want to rule what you read.
What?
They want to rule how you vote. And we want to govern. We want to fix things. We want to get things done. When I-95 collapses in Philadelphia, we want to be the party that gets it open in 16 days. When COVID hits our country, we want to reopen main streets, churches, and schools. And when your healthcare costs are rising, we want to be the
when
guys.
COVID hits
crap.
our country, you want to reopen Main Street, the churches. That's the part
I know.
I love. And the schools. All right. Well, then that would beg the question, who closed the churches, the Main Street, and the schools? And that would be you, Eric Swalwell, and
It
your
would be
ilk.
the Democratic Party as a group, as a Soviet bloc, voting bloc to close
So-
everything while keeping open liquor stores,
Yeah, then strip clubs and
clubs.
stuff, which I
Yeah.
do appreciate. But
which has their place.
the other, so Rob, you're a
Yeah.
comedian,
Yes, sir.
obviously, and I remember exactly where I was about 6-7 years ago. I was sitting in the other shop. I was doing a one-on-one with Tucker Carlson, who came into town.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do we do about all the cancel culture? And I just said, stop apologizing. Everyone stop apologizing. That's the only thing that'll stop this is you just talk, you keep talking, you don't pause, and you don't get on your heels, you don't backpedal, and you don't explain. Once you are explaining, you know, when someone's calling you a racist and you're explaining that you have black friends, you've lost. Because you're now backpedaling from their insane allegation. And I just got interviewed 10 minutes ago in doing some shows in San Francisco at Cobb's.
Yeah.
By the way, October 13th, 14th this weekend.
I don't play San Francisco anymore.
Well, I just got interviewed at a local San Francisco news station.
Ooh.
And they got right out of the gate with the allegations, which I probably should have seen coming.
Yeah.
But here's a little tutorial, budding comedians, on how to answer these questions.
Okay, good.
I don't want to talk about, look, some of your jokes are, I think you would probably say this, right? Embrace it, controversial, right? You have been criticized for some of it. So, for example, jokes like, if AOC were fat and 60, would anyone pay attention to what she says? Hollywood.
Well, that's not really a joke. That's just a truth. That's not a joke. It's an accurate thing.
Let's recategorize that. But let me just ask you, there are people in Hollywood who stay away from comments like that. You don't seem to have done so. In fact, the banner on everything reminds me of something is no apologies. I wonder how you respond to, I guess, critics who would say, oh, that's sexist or intolerant.
Well, I'm a comedian, and that's kind of my job, is to, take subjects that maybe people want to steer away from, or take angles on certain subjects that some people might find offensive, although I don't really feel like people are offended. I always just feel like they say they're offended. I don't really know who's truly offended. I don't know how much a joke can impact your life, especially if it's a person you don't really follow or listen to. So I don't really have a filter. I just have things that I think are interesting or true or funny or all the above, and then I just say them. And I'm not really interested in people's reaction to it, because that's their problem, and they're weak, and they're kind of sad, and part of the reason we're going the direction we're going as a country is we're listening to those idiots.
Please come to Cobb's Comedy.
That's
this
right.
weekend.
And 2 shows, 9 o'clock and 11.
Well, they see, their whole thing is I said AOC, if she was 60 and fat, no one ever listened to a word
They
that
just
chick
go
ever
by
said
that.
again, and they
Yeah.
go, that's super offensive. And I'm like, well, malaria, maybe something we don't like. I'm asking, is it true? If it's true, then it's true. You can say Ron DeSantis said slavery was a good thing. No, he said slaves learned trades and then used them once they became freed. Either it's true or it's not. I know you don't like it. I'm just saying, is it true? And then that's how we'll decide what to say.
Well, the idea is this false notion that John Cleese talks about, where the Democrats, they're really the liberals, I should say, liberal intelligence.
By the way, it's Cleese, as he told me on this podcast.
Cleese.
He said it's like cheese.
Yeah. Well, his real name was Cheese. His dad changed it.
Oh, that's right.
My dad's name was Cheese. Could you imagine how amazing that would have been?
Yeah.
No, it should have been. It would have been so much better for me to keep it as Cheese. No, so he says that, the liberal intelligentsia feels that these people are so feeble and they are not, and so intellectually incapable of defending themselves that we must do it for you. Because, it's that whole thing about punching down. I don't want to say which famous Hollywood comedy director was like, he's punching down. That whole theory of punching down is such bullshit, because what it is this, he's putting himself above these people. So you're punching down as if somebody is above somebody else.
Right.
I hate that kind of crap, you know?
I agree.
It's the same thing about these people. We need to protect these poor people who could be called fat, and that would ruin their afternoon.
Well, I don't even know who you're really defending when you're defending AOC. If you think about it, what is her constituency in terms of?
She's in power.
Right, she's in power. She makes good money, and she's going to the governor's ball tomorrow.
And she's an idiot.
Right, she's an idiot.
She's a
right.
certifiable moron.
But if she looked like one of my mom's friends when I was in high school, then no one would ever listen to Marge ever again.
But that's what happens is you have like, there are places, and it's what happens like for a Republican to win the presidency. It's such an incredible, it really is like winning like the decathlon with like missing fingers, you know, and a toe, missing toes. Because you automatically lose New York, you lose California to start, and now you lose Washington and Oregon, and then you lose, of course, Maine, and then Delaware, and then Connecticut, and New Jersey. So you're starting with, they only really need to get Wisconsin. That's where we're at now. And so, of course, you know, the Democratic plan is to just flood potential future voters in, and flood them into the red states so that they can take Texas eventually one day, so that there's just a one-party system. And just, that is the plan. That is what they're doing.
Well, speaking of punching down.
Yes.
So I was listening. I was that whole Beckham docu-series is on Netflix. And there was a thing that made the rounds. And it was Victoria Beckham when she was doing her interview. And it's something that I've been on hot and heavy for years now, which is pretending you're poor when you didn't grow up poor.
Oh, yeah.
That's the new world order.
I don't know, but a lot of people do that. I don't mean to out them. I don't mean to out them, but like Jay Leno was like, yeah, when I came to LA, lived in my car. You didn't live in your car. What are you talking about? Stop saying that. You never lived in your car. That's bullshit.
I took a nap in my Duesenberg.
I did right. Then we had 20 minutes. I stayed in the car. I was living in my car for 20 minutes.
No, that's the other thing I hate say. That. There's no way 86% of people in LA lived in their car at some point. We're not all Jewel.
No, but I tell my audience the other night when I was up in Binghamton, New York, I said, I came from money. And I'm proud of it. I'm not embarrassed of it. I came from money. I wasn't super wealthy, but I had everything I needed. Why? Because my dad and mom, they came from poverty. They worked their ass off, and their parents came over, and then that was something. My mother did live in poverty, but she made something of herself, got educated, became a teacher, was elected to the school board before school boards became, liberal hammers.
Hammers. Yeah.
Bastions of some kind of gender indoctrination.
I was literally, maybe we should play the clip with Paul Verzi, comedian who was in here. I don't know if we have that audio clip. But so the day before, I was talking to comedian Paul Verzi about this very subject, and he brought up a Rolls Royce, and we'll play it. You always can tell with the interviews where they go like, so how'd you grow up? Lower middle class, not even middle. It's always lower middle class. So what would your dad do? He was the head consultant for United Airlines back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. My mom worked for Getty Oil. We were very average. Very average.
Put food on the table, clothes on our back. Food on the table, clothes on our back.
We're in a country club, but I would have to rent the clubs. My dad did not buy me clubs.
Dude, I have to share that pool with other rich kids.
That's right. That's right. My first car was a Duesenberg, but it wasn't new. It was Clark Gable's. Okay? So we're very lower kind of
My
middle.
dad's first Rolls Royce was 2 years old when he got it.
We would vacation to the south of France, but my dad said 5 weeks. That's it. Right.
It is
so
true.
The following morning, I wake up. The following morning, I wake up to find this clip making the rounds of Posh Spice.
We're very working class.
Be honest.
I am being honest. I am being honest.
What car did your dad drive you to school in?
So my dad did.
No, one answer.
My dad.
What car was it?
All right, it's
Good
not
for
a
him.
simple answer
What
because.
car did you get your dad to drive
It
you to
depends.
school? No.
It depends. He had more than one.
In the 80s, my dad had a Rolls Royce.
Oh my God!
There you go.
There
Thanks,
it
David.
is.
Thank you. Right on cue.
No, there it is. Good for them. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. You came from, like, because your parents worked hard. Since when is it, I guess it just makes you look slightly better. And also, she's beautiful. Even if she came from poverty, she could have been a fucking model. You could have gone out at 13, 14, and then, got modeling pictures and made money
Well,
for
her
some
name
soap.
is Posh, which suggests a certain amount of luxury and leisure. You know what I mean? It's right in the title. She's not sporty. She's posh.
When she was a kid, she was embarrassed by her family's wealth, so she said that she begged her father not to drop her off outside the school in the Rolls Royce.
Wow.
Right. I said the same thing with my dad in the donkey. We're going the other direction here, Pops, but I'm
Luxury.
embarrassed.
Donkey. That's that old Monty Python's guy. Donkey. Fucking luxury. My dad used to drive us up. Now he'd drive us up. He'd throw us up. He'd carry us on his back and then throw us onto the cement every morning on the way to school. We'd crawl on our hands and knees without pants on.
So
Yes,
now we have this thing where everyone is trying to down round their upbringing. And now I think there's a lot of stuff we think nothing of. We go, so what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is you're missing an opportunity for a message, which is, yes, my parents made money because they work super hard, because we live in the United States, and that's affordable to everyone. That'll apply to anyone who wants to come here and work hard.
Absolutely, because my mother is Asian. Well, was Asian. She's passed away. And that's what really pissed me off is during the scamdemic was my mother. She got COVID when she was 91 and survived it.
Wow.
She wasn't on any medication, and she just still was there mentally, but she did pass away a year and a half later. And then, in the state of California, which unfortunately where she was living, they wouldn't allow people to be at the funeral. And I was like, fuck this. I said, fuck Gavin Newsom, that scumbag, hypocrite, lying piece of shit. I said, we're going to have one. If people want to come, they're going to come. And I said, I'm going to have one. So we did. And the people were pretty okay about it. And I said, we're going to get like some music. People want to show up. It's going to be outdoors. You can have a mask if you want. And if you don't, you don't, And, but I just never, can you imagine people if we wouldn't have had a funeral?
It's one of the most
imagine?
insidious parts of this whole ruse was not being able to visit your dying dad and his facility, whatever it is. I mean, burying them with no.
It's personal with me and Gavin Newsom. It is personal. I hate
such
that man.
a destructive douche. But I had a good friend from high school die, not of COVID, just dead, like shit happens. And his son was trying to get something together, and he never had a funeral. It just was right in the middle of the pandemic.
I had another friend, same thing. Raymond Francis, a terrific buddy, a health guru, and he passed away in 83, and there was nothing.
It's weird. It's it's almost like he wasn't here, because you didn't get to acknowledge his existence, this was my friend Jeff Katz, who's called into the show a time or two, saw me when I was in Utah.
That's a crime against humanity, isn't it?
Well, if it was based on some science, then you'd have an argument, but you have no argument.
What happens though is in society, if people follow, if the police know in their heart that they are that these laws are unjust, then they should not pursue them, and they should not execute these.
Agreed.
When that paddleboarder out in the middle of the water next to the harbor, and I said, now that the police should say, you know what? No, we're not doing that, you assholes. What is wrong with you?
The picture of the paddleboarder in the Malibu Bay alone, and the Coast Guard coming up to him in a cutter. Visually is the same as the poor Vietnamese girl with her clothes all burned off running at the camera.
It should change everything.
That says the whores of Vietnam. This says the whores of Gavin Newsom.
It says also that like the Japanese soldier on that one island in the Philippines who didn't think the war was over until 1970.
Right.
He was just making his way, and sure enough, the Japanese were going to come back.
Chronicled in a Gilligan's Island episode, too, by the way. Thus, you think it was all serious back then. All right, well, here's something that I feel like you're uniquely qualified to discuss. And I had this discussion, and it's a clip. It's a longish clip. It's about 6 minutes, but we can stop and start and kind of break down the game film. And the reason I think it's an important conversation to have is it was the beginnings of what we're discussing now, the time we're living in now. So I had a conversation with the mayor of Calabasas, Barry Groveman, in 2006. People would call into my radio show like Gloria Allred. Yeah. And like Gavin Newsom would come in here. And
I've repeated that clip many times.
I think their thing is I just say whatever the fuck I want. I just float my fart balloons and everyone just genuflects in front of it. But I'm like, I'm not going to do that if what you're saying is retarded. Yeah. I'm going to ask more questions or push back. And then what ends up happening is I get into a big kerfuffle with Gloria Allred, and then I never speak to her ever again, just like I never speak to Gavin Newsom ever again.
But deservedly, what happened was they don't get challenged.
They don't get challenged, and so they have no muscle mass. They cannot protect themselves when they do get challenged. They're like if somebody, like you owned a rabbit, you kept it for 6 months, you fed it Cheetos, and then you just let it go in the Hollywood Hills one day, and you went fend for yourself. Well, they're not prepared to fight the coyotes, and so they get soft. So that's what happened to Gavin Newsom, and they don't have talking points. Oh, they have talking points, but they're repetitive.
They can't stray from them, and they can't back them up because I don't think they really believe them.
Yes, I agree with that. So the thing that's, I think, interesting about the time we just passed through, and maybe the time we're going to be heading into again, was this is, 17 years old now, I guess. 17 years old. And this is, and no one was talking about COVID or anything.
But the seeds of it, you can tell. Like, when you were talking about cancellation, being canceled earlier, once they realized that what's happening to Robert Kennedy, who just announced his to be an independent. He's not running for the crazy, corrupt Democratic Party. They try to cancel you and once they don't succeed at that, then the next level is just to ignore you. Right. So they tried to cancel me for whatever. I remember because Dr. Drew and I were talking. I've been trying, for the pharmaceutical. If you question any of it, 85% of all spending on television, internet, whatever, is pharmaceutical spending in a non-election year. 85%. So if you do go after them, they're gonna have some guy write something and do this, whatever. But if they don't destroy you, if they don't cancel you completely, then they just go into ignore mode.
Yes, I've said it many times. Because I've done this, if you make a film, like an independent film, comedian, whatever films I've made, that Rotten Tomatoes, the critics, they tear you apart. Yeah. If you make a film about the first black driver at Indy, and it's really kind of a social justice thing, champion a black driver, then they won't review it at all. So then you get in ignore mode. You do a movie that's on Netflix and has made everyone's top 10 list for best sports doc, and there's 0 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because either they have something bad to say, or there's certain subjects that they can't have anything bad to say about because it's about a black driver. This is their subject, so then you get ignored. So they go either attack or ignore, depending on who you are. So Kennedy went from attack Kennedy to probably now we're in the ignore. We're in the ignore category. All right, so this mayor, Barry Groveman, who's also an attorney, he called into my show. And I just had this glimpse, it's 17 years old, but I was sitting with Dr. Drew in here a week and a half ago, and I was thinking, I remember tussling with that guy, and many of the things he said were applicable to what we just passed through with COVID. Okay. He's doing a lot of citing of the experts.
Oh, yeah.
So,
the experts are the new aristocracy.
Right.
We are the serfs.
But this is 17 years ago, and we'll just listen and we'll break it down.
When you have a debate like this in just a few minutes and people are listening and trying to sort it out, the only thing you can really do is rely on symbols. And so I respect what you're saying, but I'm proud to be with the symbols of credibility that I have. American heart, lung. Yours are speculation. And I think when it comes to public health,
yes,
if you want, bring experts on and let us debate them. But we're standing with symbols of credibility in health. You're talking about hypotheses and interesting ideas.
Let me give you let me give you an idea. Let me tell you something. All right, pause it for a second.
Okay, now I can tell you're changing.
He outlawed smoking in Calabasas and all outdoor areas.
Yeah.
So I said, what is the danger of smoking in a parking lot? And he said, secondhand smoke kills 50,000 people a year.
Yeah.
With the Heart and Lung Association and the American Cancer Institute.
They regurgitate that.
They were lying. They lied all through. The secondhand smoke lie was the exact same as the AIDS heterosexual killer lie, which is exactly the same as COVID will kill your 14-year-old healthy son.
Right.
It's the same experts and the same lie and the same mouthpieces on CNN and politicians saying, don't ask me, look at the CDC, look at Rochelle Walensky, look at the American Lung. So
look at the person in the revolving door between Pharma and the health agency.
Yes.
This person has nothing to gain except he's being paid. All the people on the vaccine advisory board, they're all paid by the vaccine companies.
So I am explaining to him that you can cite all the experts you want. You name me the person who died of secondhand smoke.
Well, let me give you let me give you an idea. Let me tell you something. If you believe in global warming, right?
Correct.
I can produce 100 scientists that tells you it doesn't exist.
But I don't want to change.
But they're scientists. They're experts. Hold on.
I'm not here to talk about.
Well, see, now when it goes against you, you don't believe the scientists.
No, I think you're just going to a different subject.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying I can produce 100 scientists that tell you there's no global warming. So what about it?
I'm only telling you, all I'm trying to say, and I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
I understand
I'm right.
Skepticism. It's correct. It's appropriate to be skeptical. But I think it's now 2006. The evidence is overwhelming. And listen, if you have to decide where you want to come down, folks like American Heart and Lung and all of the oncologists are the ones that we should be guided by on such a serious issue.
Right, but here's the point, though. You've just conceded, though, that the ulterior motive of all the oncologists and people who are anti-smoke is to weed people off of smoking cigarettes.
That's not an ulterior motive. That's a noble motive.
No, it is a noble. Listen. I absolutely agree.
But
that
you're
people
lying
are foolish.
to get your motive
people
across.
People are foolish if they decide to smoke cigarettes because
you'd only be not telling the truth if you were banning things. But the bottom line is
you're essentially. You're trying to drive them out, which means in turn you're legislating against personal freedom. That's the upshot.
We're in this good discussion. Where is your discussion for those people that want to breathe safe, clean air? They seem to be absent from the dialogue.
Clean air, please.
In Los Angeles.
Regardless of whether we agree on whether the extraordinary rise in asthma among kids is related to secondhand smoke, we don't have to get to that.
Of course it isn't. People used to smoke more, for Christ's sake.
Let me ask you.
So how do you do that math?
Well, if I could talk for 1 second.
Half the country smoked and none of the kids had asthma. So how do you do the math?
The question is this.
Please.
This is what our ordinance is aimed at.
Yes.
Regardless of what caused it, we still have a lot of kids and a lot of folks in society that are hypersensitive to smoke.
Yes.
Don't they have a right to go to public buildings and stand outside?
Well, I'm glad.
Of
course they do. Of course they do. And that's why, first off, people standing 20 feet away from you smoking doesn't make a difference. It's not going to cause asthma.
You're not a scientist. What's your evidence? Tell me your evidence.
I have eyeballs and ears. I see what goes on.
Well, I'd rather take the scientist because on public health,
I used to smoke on airplanes and kids didn't have asthma.
Adam, it's better to be safe than sorry.
All right, but listen, everybody hides behind this, and it is taking away from everyone's civil liberties.
We put this in broad daylight. What
I mean is you hide behind the cloak of public safety, and everyone applauds.
What a wonderful cloak to be behind.
Oh, yeah, but let me tell you the problem with it. It enables people. We're turning into a litigious, frivolous society.
There's no litigation here. This is all going to be done by cooperation like it is in
somebody can tell you to put your cigarette out at the park, and if you don't, you're going to get a ticket. What kind of bizarre Orwellian nightmare have we entered?
Why does the Chamber of Commerce and the Restaurant Association support what we did as a strike?
Because you strong-armed them, that's why.
No, I don't think so.
Yes, of course.
Because you
told
think
them you're
this
going to
is a
send the health
righteous...
inspector down to close them down if they didn't agree with you.
because you've decided that it would be good for people not to smoke cigarettes because this is a righteous cause does not mean talk about hiding behind a cloak. Now you're allowed to take away people's right to do what they please with themselves.
You never did do the math where more Americans smoked 50 years ago and less kids had asthma.
Adam, I just want to ask that.
Well, he ignores that.
In fairness to the discussion you started with.
You can't do that math for us?
In respect,
yes.
Tell me who the symbols, everybody that debates us has a tobacco-related motive.
Yes.
I'm proud to be with a health-related group of folks.
I'm happy to be with Americans who enjoy their civil liberties and who are tired, let me finish, who are tired of victims taking over our society.
But don't invoke,
are tired of being threatened and sued if we do anything.
But don't invoke civil liberties. Let me tell you why. There is no right that harms somebody else. And if you go on the website, the American Civil Liberties Union, they don't oppose actions like this.
Yeah, because they're left-wing pussies. That's why.
Because they know that no right extends to the harm of somebody else.
Yes.
Once you've
established the harm, you've not really established that. I just asked you why more people have asthma now that less people smoke, and you can't answer that. So I don't think you made your point at all.
Emissions.
People are exposed to. Well, there's a lot of factors, but secondhand smoke is clearly one of them.
Yeah, it's clearly at the bottom of the list.
Why wouldn't we as a society?
Give me a number. How many people die? How many people die each year of secondhand smoke? Give me your number.
I can only tell you that the one of the directors of the American Heart Association, who testified before us in the hearing, told us this ordinance was going to save thousands and thousands of lives.
Just in Calabasas?
Can you name one other product? Close your eyes. Mm-hmm. One other product on the face of the earth that when you use it as indicated, it kills you. So we have a tremendous.
Well, listen, junk food will kill you. You can go get a fifth of tequila at the liquor store and go to the Big Five and get a crossbow and kill yourself.
That what I think we did right, and the reason we have the support of businesses and the Restaurant Association, is we struck a balance. We didn't ban it. We don't stop it.
But come on, it's a first step. It's a step towards ultimately banning it.
This is a step towards elevating respect and making it acceptable to say, would you mind putting it out or going to an approved area like you do at the airport?
All right, listen, you guys start building your smokers' gulags over there. I'm going to Canada.
Yeah, well, now
it ain't better Canada.
I know, it was 15 years or 18 years ago. All right, so listen.
Yeah, that was...
replace secondhand smoke with COVID.
Yeah.
We got the experts. The experts testified.
Yeah.
We're trying to save people. You need to sacrifice so that we can save these people, and you think you're smarter than all these experts? They've spoken. It's completely analogous. We're going to take away your civil liberties because our experts have spoken, and I'm saving people and you hate people. It's the exact same lie that they did with COVID.
And if you go back, I mean, seriously, it was the Nazis used health as a ruse, of course, to go after Jews. Yeah, and gypsies and homosexuals as a health hazard. It's the same thing.
It's for guys like that and guys like Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and other folks that want power. Yeah. No one goes out and says, I'm a tyrannical dictator, I'm fucking drunk on power, and I want it all. They have to offer up an excuse. Lori Lightfoot has to explain that you'll be arrested if you walk by the lake because she fucking is drunk on power, but she can't say that. She has to say because of COVID, and that's what Gavin Newsom, and that's what this asshole did 17 years ago. He wants power, and all I'm saying is this is 17 years ago, and they're talking about same experts, same argument.
It is the same thing. Lori Lightfoot, and you know what? There is no repercussions from it. I mean, she didn't even get elected, which is tough. Being a black lesbian in Chicago, you don't get reelected, you really fucked up. I mean, that is saying, well, we're not, that's too crazy. And then they hired somebody, they voted for somebody else who's even crazier. But she got hired, she made a lateral move. She's at Harvard University, she's now teaching governance.
Harvard.
Can you imagine?
These Ivy League schools just become a repository for every every liberal fucked up politician just ends up over there. Brian Stelter and guys like that, they all just go over there.
When they got their second daily gay news periodical. It's like you have one, you can't get everything. You need a second. It's like these other assholes at this other gay periodical. They're not telling the truth. We need to tell the real truth with this other gay periodical. You need two dailies, and they did fall off the cliff. And finally, it's somewhat being exposed because if you look at the Black Lives Matter, what they really all the millions of dollars they bought homes, they went on vacation, they did, and then you have this guy X Kendi, whose real name is like Roger Smith or something.
That guy's the best.
Oh, yeah.
He will never talk to anybody because he's an idiot. There's no way he can have a decent conversation, with like James Lindsay or someone who's actually a real intellectual, Peter Boghossian, my buddy Andrew Doyle. These are people that can really have a conversation and question you about this. And these people won't go on because they cannot back it up. They can only stick to those same thing like the mayor did. He's got his talking points and he's not going to waver from that because he doesn't know how to actually have a conversation where he has to answer.
Well, he's explaining that childhood asthma is up 50% and smoking's down 75%.
Yeah.
So how is it that you explain that statement?
Yeah.
Which is it's patently insane. That's why I asked him 7 times to explain it. And then he told me there were other, I don't know what he said, other elements involved. Listen, you need to find, and I'll put it to Dawson, we'll take a break, but Ingram X Kendi, what's his first name?
There's an X in there, which scares Harvard. We got to hire that guy because we don't want to. We don't want to not hire a guy that's got an X in his name.
He went to Harvard or Columbia or Yale or somewhere and started a foundation to get to the bottom of racism, and now they've laid everyone off and they're out $30 million and no one knows where the money went. It's such a scam. I tell people all the time these guys are hustlers.
Oh yeah,
and you guys all just it's race hustling, and you guys buy in, and they do incredible untold amounts of destruction to this country. But there's an article, it's about 2 weeks old, of him and his endowment, and he's going to go study racism somewhere and get paid, and now the money's gone.
There's
and
like one employee left, $30 million gone, and no one. And it's so embarrassing for Harvard. They don't even want to talk about or deal with it. They just want it to go away, but somebody found out about it, so they have to do something about it. But they don't want to do anything about it.
Well, they didn't care. So here's the thing. I would say to people all the time about Black Lives Matter, who I labeled a grift from Jump Street. People say, well, what about these companies, Nike or Pepsi Cola or whoever who got ripped off? They gave these people $5 million and the people went out and bought a house with it and did nothing. All right, so what about Nike getting ripped off? And I'm like, Nike got every penny's worth.
Oh, yeah.
Because Nike's not interested in human rights or saving black people. Yeah. Nike's interested in not getting fragged politically.
Yeah. So for having corporations in China.
They just paid them so they could say they paid them, and they got their money's worth because they weren't buying anything with the money in the first place. Nike doesn't care if black people rise up or helped or educated or anything. They just have the illusion of it. That's
just because I'm Filipino, and my mother was Filipino, and I consider myself. I never wrote on it like you got to hire this Filipino guy, but Asians are the inconvenient minority because you can't blame white oppression keeping them down because Asians are doing better than anybody else, and you'll never hear about it.
No,
because it doesn't fulfill that.
Well, we'll take a break, and then I'll tell you about it right after this. Stamps.com, holiday rush, more mailing and shipping for your business, but doesn't have to mean more stress. Stamps.com, helping over 1 million businesses like yours save time and money for over 25 years. I've used Stamps.com here for 12 years plus. We send merch and books and paperwork. They gave us a scale. We do it all right in-house. It's your own personal post office wherever you are. Plus, premium discounts on supplies. With Stamps.com, all you need is a computer and a printer, and you are good to go. Get your business ready for the holiday rush with Stamps.com. Use the promo code ADAM for a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. And it's no lightweight scale. It goes over 50 pounds. No commitments, no contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code ADAM for all the freebies and savings. Well, Rob, Schneider's shaking the dew off the lily, but he's going to be right back in the studio post-haste. And we've found that article, the Ibram X. Kendi, what's his real name?
His real name is Ibram Henry Rogers. People know him. He was the one who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Right. So it's a great grift. And it's a multi-billion-dollar grift now, where if you work for any Fortune 500 company, then they have to come in and you have to have a consultant show up, and every campus has 300 people working in that department, and then they need to get paid. But the real insidious part is you have to find something. If you're put on a campus and you're being paid to find termites, cockroaches, and or racism, eventually got to show up with something in your bag. Otherwise, why are we paying you $250K a year? So now they have all the diversity officers, and that's why the campuses have completely gone off the rails.
Do you think these people are genuine, though? Like, do they believe it, or are they...
I am now realizing that there is a sort of a third sphere that a lot of Americans live in. Rob's making his way back in the studio. Let's see if Rob believes this.
What's this?
There's a kind of a third universe that people are living in, which is, there's my team, and was the ball fair or foul? And well, that'll depend a lot on who's at bat. Because if it's my team batting, then it's fair. And if it's the other team batting, then it's foul, which is already kind of a flawed approach to life, you know?
Well, it's like trying to win.
But there's a third strata of people who really do believe the ball was fair every time their team was batting, and foul every time the other team was batting. And you go, do they actually believe it? And it's sort of like, they've got so much riding on this game, and they're so invested, and they bought the windbreaker, and they bought the banner, and they've got the cup, they have the hat, they have all the memorabilia, and they're so fucking far in now that they can't afford for that ball to be foul.
Well,
and then they're just, and you go, but do they believe it? It's like, it doesn't really matter.
No,
that's what pays the bills. All the race hustlers are like, do they really think we're worse off now than they were in the 60s or whatever? It's like, these are all questions to mega fans who are getting paid, and it's not even worth trying to parse out what they think anymore.
No, it's like, if you look at the defense of Biden and his son and his brother, the defense is an admission of guilt.
Yeah.
The defense is, no, but you can't tie any of the graft of his son and his brother to the president. It's only the son that did graft, 24 million, and his brother. You can't tie any of it. That's not a defense. That's an admission of guilt.
I agree. And by the way, those shell accounts were in his grandchildren's names, not his. So, you
can't tie any of it. You can only tie it directly and prove it to the son. It's like, that is, it's a crazy.
They're insane. They're like, we have messages of him telling his Chinese business partner from Joe's house in Delaware, my dad's in the room.
He can hear you right now.
And if I tell him that you're stiffing us out of these thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, he's not going to be in a good mood. And then the argument is we don't know if he was in the room.
He could have been in the bathroom.
He could have been in the entry hall. We don't know.
He could have been out of earshot. We don't know for sure.
The defense part.
Yeah, that's what gets
me. To me, is the most telling part because CNN, you're supposed to be a news organization, not a circle the wagons and protect your guy organization. You go out looking for leads, not fending off people who have leads.
Well, that's the whole thing. If you look at actually what the Washington Post and New York Times says they're going to do, they're supposed to. It's a search for the truth, regardless of political party. It's regardless of what somebody thinks. It's a search for truth, and it's a search for garbage. It's an absolute. I mean, a friend of mine who's a Fortune 500 CEO. He said he had met with the editor in chief of the New York Times before the last election and when Trump lost. Well, he won, and then 3:00 in the morning lost. But he said he considers it. I said, do you not care about objectivity at all? he said, I consider it my moral imperative to make sure that Trump is not elected.
Well,
that's the whole thing.
That's when we jumped the shark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the Ibram X. Kendi story that...
What's his real name? It's Roger something, isn't it?
Ibram Henry Rogers.
It's Henry Rogers.
Ibram Henry Rogers.
Yeah, but you put an X in there because it sounds cool.
It does.
Ibram X. Kendi's Center for Anti-Racist Research lays off staff members. Boston University confirms.
Oh, Boston University.
Yeah. The staff
Harvard.
for Ibram X. Kendi's Center for Anti-Racist Research at Boston University will be smaller this school year. Boston University confirmed to Fox News on Thursday that the center laid off approximately 15 to 20 staff members in what it called an evolving process. The center is evolving to a fellowship model. Dr. Kendi remains the director. We can confirm that there were layoffs at the center. The university and the center are committed to working with and supporting affected employees as they look for their next opportunities, said Boston University.
Could we ask the posture and could we ask the question, if he was white, what would be happening right now?
We never would have been laid on. Laying off.
Even if he had an X on his name. If you're
this
white,
article I was reading had numbers and endowments and money and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any of that in there?
Right now I have that in July, the center had approximately 45 staffers, so that's down. Hold on, I'm looking.
I think there's only one left.
Yeah, my article that I heard was about 2 weeks old. Maybe it's a different article. But the whole point is it's a grift. It's 2023. And these, look, if you were legitimate, then you wouldn't have to fuck with your name and grow your hair out and go the full Colin Kaepernick thing where you turned from a Syrian cab driver into a Black Panther in 18 months, which is essentially, I could show you a Syrian cab driver version of him, and then there's the Black Panther version of him.
Yeah.
You don't need the clown costume if you have actually legitimate points to make.
Right.
That's the first thing you should see coming.
Well, Robin DiAngelo is another one of these race hustlers who just hates herself so much and hates white people that says if you're white, you're white, you're automatically racist, you know?
No, yeah. No, it's not their fault. They're just the Music Man blowing into town. It's everyone who's signing up and giving them money. It's all the scared corporations, all the scared colleges, all the scared entities that are embracing these people and then giving them endowments and putting them on their college campus and naming buildings after them. Was that another article then that
they don't want to look bad.
Yeah,
they don't want to look bad just in case. That's how it's it's a bunch of pussies. It's really
pussies.
The liberal intelligentsia is a bunch of pussies who just won't say no because they don't want to look bad in any way. They would rather deal with the grift and just
but they have a ace in their hole. They have a derringer in their boot, which is this. People like me essentially are arguing for smoking, arguing for COVID, arguing for racism. That's how they do it, and that's why they get everyone to fold and immediately get on their side, because who wants to be on the side of the pro-smoking side, which is how they do it. Now, I'm not talking about COVID anymore. I'm talking about smoking. I'm talking about civil liberties and actual data, numbers. Like how many people die of secondhand smoke? Well, answer's nobody. It doesn't exist.
But the idea is once you just keep repeating this mantra and then people just kind of go with it. I've been accused of racism and I go, what was it? Well, you played a different culture, and so that's not racism. I'm not holding somebody back and denying them employment or education because of their race. I was hired by a corporation, the Sony Pictures, to play this person in a movie that they were okay with and they approved it, and I didn't write. I just was in it, and so that suddenly all of a sudden that's his proof of racism. It's just they just throw shit against the wall and just like hopefully nobody will say anything or catch them. I had the New York Times said it was racist that I played a Hawaiian guy in a movie, 50 First Dates. He said, well, that was racism, a white guy. And then he found that I'm part Filipino. And then so he apologized, but he didn't apologize in the paper.
No. No, they never officially do
Yeah, I didn't
it.
see an apology.
It's not the same, if they do, it's like a correction in the page 34. It's not like the same cover of the entertainment section.
Right.
Rob Schneider, racist, white man.
Yeah,
Listen,
I still think you're racist.
I'm gonna say to my son,
Either you do it good or you're not. Nobody complained in Hawaii.
when my son leaves the house in a year, God willing,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say to him, boy,
Good luck. You're white and going to college.
If you're not getting called racist at least 3 times a week, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You're not speaking about something, or you're doing it wrong. Your dad would not be happy.
Here's what's happening. Women are taking a backseat to men's rights now. You have women, thankfully, so women are finally are calling on it, and finally the women's swim team said no girl dick in the locker room. And then you have gays, we have 20% of, it's usually, if you're born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and look this up, 4% identify as gay. 4% if you're born in those decades. That's the statistics over 6 decades don't lie. Now you have Generation Z, 20% identify. 20%. And you have Brown University this semester, 40% identify, because you get something for it. 40%. Now, statistically, it's impossible for them to all be gay. So if this trend continues, eventually, most of the people in the gay community will be straight.
No, if there was actual...
If they'll be straight, they'll be straight. So you have women that are taking a backseat now to men's rights, women's rights. And then you have gays that are being supplanted by heterosexuals. And then you have, in California, you have people graduating, you have African Americans graduating separately from whites. So you have segregation again. You have women taking it back. You know what they say? They call it in California. They call it progress. You know what I call it? The 1950s. It's the same shit in the 1950s.
Black dorms, black graduation ceremonies. And listen, it all comes down to a very basic. It's a very basic kind of math. Gavin Newsom can talk all he wants about how great California is.
Yeah.
If people are leaving California, then that's the bottom line.
That's the first time in decades that there has been an exodus. Less people.
Bottom line.
Less people in California. They lost a congressman.
But, and I will say this, if you're claiming this is a racist country and people that are of mixed race, half black, half white, are identifying as black, then you've lost that argument too. It's a basic bottom line argument. There's nobody in Germany in 1938 and a half that was half Jewish and identifying as fully Jewish. We have the article now, I think.
That's such a great point.
Amid mass layoffs, BU Center for Anti-Racist Research is accused of mismanagement of funds and disorganization. Boston University hired Ibram X. Kendi to lead its new Center for Anti-Racist Research in 2020, a year marked by global pandemic and nationwide racial tension. 3 years later, after at least $43 million in grants and gifts, and what sources say has been an underwhelming output of research, the Center for Anti-Racist Research laid off almost all of its staff.
No, they did. They did one paper. Look that up. Kendi did one paper in 3 years.
With the article.
The $43 million, according to 2021 budget records obtained by the Daily Free Press, includes general support, such as $10 million from Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey.
Wow.
The document, which is not an all-inclusive list of the donors, also lists TJ Maxx Foundation, Stop and Shop, and Peloton as donating over $1 million. Kendi, a National Book Award-winning author of How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Nobody read it. They just bought it. Nobody read it.
Andrew W. Mellon, professor in the humanities and a history professor at DBU, founded the center 3 years after he founded the Anti-Racist Network. Kendi talked to BU. My hope is that, I'm not seeing many more numbers.
All right. The whole point is it got 43 million, and now they're breaking it down. So there it is. Grift, scam, whatever. I don't know. By the way, on a college campus, you're going in search of racism on a college campus. You really need to go. You need to go to like a high school football game in the South or something. I don't think you're going to find it on the college campus. But anyway, it's a grift. It's not what he's doing. It's what is everyone else who supports it doing. Why are they so? Why is Jack Dorsey giving him $10 million? Does he give him $10 million just to be left alone? Is it Is it basically paying off the mob not to break the windows of your dry cleaners?
I think so. It's like you leave me alone. I'm one of you. I'm on your side. Leave me alone. I think it's that. Also, I think it looks good. He can say it on his portfolio. Yeah,
so Jack Dorsey.
That's like a tip. First of all, he's a billionaire. Jack Dorsey, like $10 million to him is like leaving 30% at a restaurant.
Is it the equivalent when these companies do this with Black Lives Matter or Ibram X Kendi or whatever? It's basically the equivalent of the liquor store in Santa Monica who puts the BLM flag on their store, basically saying, "Do not loot this place. I'm down with the cause."
No, but it is. Right? It's the same thing as the restaurants, and you said it in that when you were talking to the mayor of Calabasas. They are strong armed. They feel whether they are actually called on the phone, they feel strong armed.
Yeah,
and so it's that perception.
You don't have to call them. It's comply, or you're not going to be working. It's understood.
It is that you are on our side, or you're an enemy.
All right, we got the news. I got other stuff to get to, and we'll do all that right after this. Let me tell you about Tommy John. Well, it's fall. Pick some apples, not wedgies. Get the new underwear that takes care of the whole fruit basket. Tommy John. When you wear Tommy John, you're so much more comfortable. You do everything better. I'm wearing mine right now. Dozens of comfort innovations, breathable, lightweight, moisture-wicking fabric, and it's 4 times the stretch of competing brands. Keeps you comfortable no matter what the season. Over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews. Tommy John, they don't have customers. They have fanatics like me. They gave me my first few pairs, and now I buy them because I am hooked. Look, all I can tell you is once you get on to Tommy John, you'll never go back to what you're currently wearing unless you're wearing Tommy John. It's the best pair you'll ever wear. It's free. Guarantee. Am I right, Dawson?
Get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/Adam. 20% off at TommyJohn.com/Adam. TommyJohn.com/Adam. See site for details.
Let me tell you about Angie Homeowners. You know, it's a lot of work to own a home. Whether it's everyday maintenance, repairs, or dream projects, it can be hard to even know where to start. All you need is Angie. Your home for everything home. Find a skilled local pro who will deliver quality and experience. Over 20 years of home service experience. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions and Angie handles the rest. Look, you're busy. You don't have time to do all this stuff. Let Angie handle it. Take care of just about any home project in just a few taps. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit online. Visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. ANGI.com. That's Angie. Let them do all the heavy lifting. Rob Schneider is here. It's got dates all over the place.
I'm going to be in Virginia this weekend.
That's right. Harrison Opera House. Yeah. And you can go to robschneider.com for all the live events.
Nice working in an opera house, by the way.
I could imagine.
It's beautiful. And then it's nice because all the people that work at the opera house are so happy because it's just a comedian. It's a mic. They don't have to clean anything up.
You can see all those people fanning themselves in the audience with their binoculars. I like the idea that the opera glasses, someone's like, look, we need binoculars, but these ones have to have a stick on them.
Yeah.
And you're like, why can't we just use binoculars? Like, it's too much work to hold your hand in this direction. You got to hold the stick. And we'll call them opera glasses. And it's like, is it really much more of a calorie burner to hold your hand this way versus vertically? I get it if you pay someone to hold the stick. Although I feel like that'd be a lot of conversations if you had like a opera.
No, but you tried. This is tiring after a while. No, they're right, and you're wrong about
But you're holding the stick. You still have to have the hand up.
But the stick can be down. You can lean the hand down. No, I do. I think this one. You think
they have a point?
I think this one they do have a point, and also they're older people too. They get tired.
It's less work.
Ami Horowitz is calling. It's a friend of the show. It's funny. His latest PragerU video is Israelis or Palestinians, I should say, who's more tolerant. That was his last vid he did for PragerU, and now he's kind of, you would go to Ami for all things Jewish. He's been in Israel a lot, and obviously the shit's going down.
And he calls him our mensch on the street.
That's right. So, Ami?
Hey, buddy. How you doing, man? Yeah, I am Mr. Jew. So if it's usually a topic, I'm the guy.
Beseder Gamor. What does that mean?
Yeah, I like that, Rob.
Beseder Gamor.
It means very good. It absolutely.
Beseder.
Wow.
Beseder.
All right, speak English, you guys.
What's going on in Israel right now and over the weekend?
So it was a really, shocking shot. Look, Israel has been through a lot when it comes to the victim of terrorism by the Palestinians over the years.
Nothing worse than this, though. Nothing worse than this.
There was nothing like this ever. Like
Ever.
even
In
like
the history of Israel.
The Yom Kippur War, as awful as that
1973,
was,
it wasn't like this.
That was essentially military attacking another military, right?
Yes.
Yes, they were trying to wipe Israel off the map, but it was a military attack.
They weren't coming in, kidnapping, grabbing children and grandmothers and taking them hostage. This is like the most barbarism, Middle Ages shit that you've ever seen in your life.
We're talking about raping grandmothers, raping kids. This is on a level that we have not seen ever, really. The level of brutality is simply off the charts, and the numbers. Look, my people are telling me on the inside that this is going to top over 1,000 people who were killed, and relative. You want to look at what that is relative to the size of the U.S. population. That's if there was an attack in the U.S. and 50,000 people were killed. Wow. That's the level of death and carnage that we're seeing. But I think here's the craziest part. And actually, I actually took a break from a video that I'm shooting now in response, and I'm asking people on the left here in New York if this attack was justified. And I'm telling you, 80% of the people that I'm talking about are excusing the attack, justifying the attack, and telling me that Hamas has the moral high. If you can believe the nonsense, Hamas has the moral high ground on this attack. And what's so amazing, I don't know if you guys have watched, I've been obsessively watching the news, and with CNN in particular, the first 24 hours of the attack, they were 100% on the side of Israel, right? Across the board. They called it brutal, horrific, terrorists. And then we started to see a change. Actually, it was Anderson Cooper came on at night, and Anderson Cooper used the word militant for the first time on CNN. And said, well, the U.S. calls them a terrorist organization. And that was the beginning of this thread that I think CNN started to pull. And now you're seeing the narratives starting to change. Now we're seeing, hey, Israel is now responding by brutalizing the Palestinians. And they were showing images. I'm sorry the noise is back, I'm out on the street. But the images they were showing were like Gaza, Israel, essentially saying there's a moral equivalency between the barbaric attack on civilians as opposed to Israel's response against Hamas. It's truly fascinating.
Yeah, there's many things that I find interesting that sort of came from the left, and that I always talk about McCarthyism and how they're practicing McCarthyism now in much greater numbers than they ever practiced it in the 50s, something they rail against. How they seem to be for, the industrial military complex.
Well, that's coming from the government too. Is you have, you're getting that from the mainstream media that it just they just support
right.
But
I'm saying I grew up in a nest of leftists who would have never been into McCarthyism or deplatforming people or removing them from their jobs. They've never supported the industrial military complex.
Right.
They were pro-Israel. When did everything just turn upside down? When did every college campus become against Israel and into divesting from Israel?
I think part of it was the turn of this woke ideology, which is my truth is my truth and your truth is your truth, and my truth is as an emotional truth, and it's like, no, there is the truth. You can see barbarism and you can't describe it in any other way or justify it except it is barbarism. It is and it is a war crime. It's barbarism. It is murder, and it is these people are beasts.
I was asking Ami, but Sorry.
Hey, man, the great Rob Schneider has a right to answer that question.
You're right.
But I will take my crack at it, and I will say this. It was when we decided to sell victimhood as a virtue. When we started peddling victimhood and saying that we have to raise the victims, that's when you saw the pendulum change. When they were selling the... I actually spent 2 weeks undercover with Hamas. I got to know them and their mentality very, very well. They are extremely smart people. And they were telling me that we have to portray ourselves every possible way as victims because the West understands victimhood. They got this before we did. They understood the paradigm shift and dynamic of we can sell ourselves as victims, we will win the propaganda war, and they're 100% right. That's when it began in my humble opinion.
That's interesting.
Smart. I mean, that is a major, major commodity. And especially in a world where all you have is public opinion, and that's sort of your commodity, well, then having every single dingbat on every single college campus be in your corner. And by the way, those dingbats are going to get jobs at CNN. They're going to get jobs as senators. They're going to get jobs in Congress. Those guys are going to leave that college campus and in a few short years be in positions where they're in charge of purse strings that have to do with you. So smart.
And I'll point out one other thing that when we were sitting around and drinking coffee and singing songs and talking late into the night, that when they were talking about who they want to kill, they obviously never said Israelis. Those were not the words they would use, or Zionists. They kept saying Jews. I want to make something that's very clear. This is really not about land. It's about the eradication of the Jewish people. That's what this is. And they don't care if you live in Israel, if you live in New York City, if you live in LA or in Arizona. If you're a Jew, the Jews are what they want and who they want to wipe out. I want to make that very clear to my Jewish friends who are on the left who support the Palestinians and say it's Israel who are the oppressors. Hey, brother, I got to tell you a little secret. If they see you on the street, they'll kill you because they're a Jew. They don't give a crap, shit about your political perspective.
All I can say is it's a good thing our border is shored up so none of these people can sneak across. It's a very good thing that we have
a stout border.
Yeah, that there's not a possibility of any radicals or terrorists sneaking into the United States because we're
ready for it.
Taking care of that at the southern border where that's not a problem. So luckily, we're all safe. Thank you, Biden administration, for that.
I go to sleep at night saying my prayers, saying, thank you, Kamala Harris, for being the border czar. Where would we be without her?
Yes. Oh, my God.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem we have at the border is those Border Patrol guys on horseback beating those Haitians. These are honest people coming here to hang a shingle and start a new life, and then they're just bootstrapping them with their reins. So that was a big deal. Other than that, we have no problems at the border, Ami. So how do you think this thing's going to play out in Israel?
It's no bueno. I think it's the best way of putting it. I think it's going to be very, very... Look, I think it's stupidity for them to do that. I guess I know why they did it. The reason why they did it was because they saw Israel moving toward peace with all of its
neighbors,
the people who were funding them over the years, right? The Saudis in particular. When they saw the Saudis moving toward a détente with Israel, they said, this cannot be. We have to find a way to create a wedge between Israel and the Palestinians.
And the way to do that is to have an extended war.
Look, Biden actually, I was happy with his statement. It was a very unequivocal support of Israel in this particular case. Although, actually, it's really interesting, the initial comment that came out of the Biden embassy in Tel Aviv was de-escalation. Literally, before Israel even reacted, this was right out, the moments after the attack, they called for de-escalation. And to Biden's credit, I'm not a fan, but I like to credit where credit is due, they rescinded that and recanted that statement from the embassy, which I liked. But if we're being real, the thing that they have to understand is the Iranians are funding all of this, right? The Palestinians have no industry, right? They don't have a high-tech sector like Israel does. Their money is all coming from the Iranians. I think the last time I saw the budget was 94% from the Iranians. Now, when the Biden administration will take great pains to say the $6 billion that we spent,
we told them not to give it to them. We told them specifically, you buy some hummus with it, you buy other things, baba ganoush, but you do not buy weapons, please. We ask you. We said the word please, and it's not like they can't get the weapons from Afghanistan.
All right, sorry. Go ahead, Army.
What's that?
Sorry, finish that.
Yeah, so yes, okay, actually, that's the argument that the Biden administration is making. Like, hey, this is only for humanitarian purposes. Let's assume that they're right, and they're giving the money to vendors who are paying the thing. That's fine. But it's like, either they have a willful disregard for what the concept of fungibility of money is, or they're just stupid. Like, how do they not understand that if you give money to somebody who would otherwise have spent the money on it, that just means it frees up the other pocket to spend it on whatever they want. It's insane to me that they're making the argument that the money they're giving them has no consequence against us in the United States and Israel. It is beyond belief.
Yeah, so the fungible part is basically like, let's say, it's back in the day, I got no money, I'm living in my apartment, I got $500 set aside for rent that's due in a week. So I set that aside. And then I have a uncle who calls me and goes, hey man, I just had a great day at the track. I got $500. It's going to take a week to send it out to you, but I'll send you $500 because I just kicked ass at the racetrack. And then I go, oh, okay. Then I take the $500 I got set aside for rent and I just go buy Coke with it. Now, you could accuse my uncle of buying me Coke with the money, but he didn't buy me Coke with the money. He just freed up the money I'd set aside for rent so I could buy Coke with that money, and then his $500 went to rent. That's basically what you're talking about, right, Ami?
Is that a difficult concept to understand? I don't understand how the Biden administration doesn't get that. That is like the ABCs of like anybody who spends money per month understands that concept. The entire administration can't get it. What's going on?
I agree. So, how do you think this plays out?
How long do you think this is going to be?
I think this is going to be months, not days, and I think that Israel. Well, here's exactly how it's going to play out. Israel is going to clean their clock. And unfortunately, Israel, a lot of people are going to die on the Palestinian side in Gaza. And like I said, you're going to see the entire narrative turn on Israel. Even though Israel they are literally the most ethical army in the world. Yeah. When you look at the numbers of how many civilians die for each attack, no army in the world, not NATO, not the United States, not Sweden, kills less civilians per capita than Israel does. But yet, Israel is going to be blamed as the oppressor, and that narrative will continue.
Remember the Scud missiles dropping in from Iraq and Israel restraining themselves and not responding?
Yes, and that was probably a massive mistake that they paid for years. I think they said, Israel will respond if we attack them.
How long before the first member of the squad says something really stupid
they kind of did right out of the gate.
Semitic?
Yeah, it's already they haven't said anything anti-Semitic at this point. Yeah, but it's already they're already saying like AOC way out of the gate is like, hey Israel, you can't respond. You got to chill. Like they already began that. Yeah. But I promise you that once the attacks begin to ramp up in Gaza, as they will and as they should, you will hear the squad come out completely stridently against Israel. And the anti-Semitism will start coming from that. The Jewish lobby's protecting Israel. All that is going to come out, and it's going to put the Biden administration in a very, very tough spot.
Who's going to be first? Is it going to be the ladies from The View or the squad that says something retarded involving Israel?
I think it's going to be a photo finish, man. I don't know. I would not lay a bet on that, to be honest.
Ami, you can shoot Ami a tweet at AMI Horowitz, and I'd appreciate it if you check back periodically, Ami, and gave us an update on this subject you know very well.
I will. And by the way, the great Rob Schneider, did I hear that you knew who I was before I came on?
Yes. Come on, I'm a fan of the show.
I am tickled to death.
Well, and I think what you were saying before, I do think like the idea for Hamas is to stretch this out to test the patience of Israel's neighbors and to test their the peace in that region. I do think that is they'll try to stretch this out so that eventually it'll become so strained that it'll collapse those peace initiatives.
Well,
You're not wrong.
Oh, there's a part 2, by the way, that the ladies from The View and the squad need to get on. They got to link this to Trump. So that right now, they're sliding some numbers around down in their basement, trying to figure out to come up with an achievable math equation that connects this to Trump and the Trump administration. Believe me, that'll be part 2. All right, Ami, good to speak to you, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right. We got some news to get to.
That ruined my
it's horrible.
Indigenous Peoples Day. All right, so police in eastern Pakistan have smashed an illegal organ harvesting ring.
First of all, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I want to just start.
There's illegal harvesting.
I want to do a daily cable show called "What Year Is It?" and it's like there's more human trafficking out of and the Middle East is on fire. I just go, what?
Here's the thing: if China and Afghanistan, these are the places. It's the only places in the world. If you smoke and drink too much, it's actually better for your health because then it's less likely that the government there will use you to harvest organs to sell.
Wow.
I wouldn't take it from me. I'm a mess. My asshole just fell out an hour ago. You don't want this. You don't want my liver.
You know something crazy, Rob Schneider? Bring it all back. You watch SNL from 1977. SNL from 1977. Yeah. Watch Chevy Chase do the news, and he'll lead with trouble in the Middle East.
Yeah.
You will hear trouble in the Middle East at the top of SNL in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. We lead with it today.
And we lead with it today.
So, so this gang, the alleged gang leader, identified as Dr. Fawad, is accused of conducting 328 operations on people to remove their kidney and sell them to clients for about $34,000 each. He was allegedly...
So he would take it, and they would go in for another reason.
Yeah, that's right.
He would say, "I'm going to have to put you under for this."
Right.
Oh,
and then
no
they would secretly take the kidney. Yeah. So
just one though.
By the way, so the police became aware of this because a man approached them saying that he was persuaded by one of the gang members to seek private medical treatment, and then he went to another doctor and was told he didn't have a kidney.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how they.
That's also a dummy who can't like that scar. I think I had it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't remember precisely, but I don't know. I don't remember that.
Oh, and the doctor was allegedly assisted in the operations by an unnamed car mechanic who administered the anesthesia.
Oh, wow.
Well, you got to give it to him, though. I mean, that's a talent.
Yeah,
the anesthesiologist is the most highest paid guy in the room usually.
Yeah.
When you're having surgery, and that's the guy who's going to bring you back. So for a car guy to do that's talent.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
that guy.
He's probably working on the nitrous in the Fast and Furious. They're always with the nitrous, you know what I mean? So car guys today know their way around a nitrous tank. Maybe that's what he was using for the anesthetic.
Yeah. So this doctor has previously been arrested 5 times, but was released on each occasion and was able to resume his operations.
Sure.
Are you saying in Pakistan you could buy your way out of jail?
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
I am saying that.
That's racist.
3 deaths so far have been confirmed.
Wow.
But we're still confirming the data.
Wow.
It's just insane that this goes on. And you should thank your lucky stars that you don't live in a country that is that backward, even if we're marching toward it.
Don't you know, though, that there are, and they're roughly, if you read The Sociopath Next Door, if you go by that, there are roughly 4% of people. So 96% is good. 4% of people are sociopaths that have no conscience.
Yes.
And mostly they just go about making problems for people that they run across in their families or whatever. But if they get in positions of power, that is when they could do some evil shit like that, right?
Well, there's something I don't think we counted on as a society, which is the amount of people who will do most anything for money.
Yeah.
And maybe we should have seen it coming because money will buy you, it can buy you healthcare, it can buy you transportation, it can buy you all things from the sort of trivial, it's a snakeskin wallet, to my son, I can pay for his rehab, or whatever that thing is. And so if you construct a society where money, because we're not really done with, we're at the part now where, like, I was walking my neighborhood today, I saw the mobile dog grooming van, parked in front of a neighbor's house. So it was difficult to avoid washing your dog back in the day. But now, if you have $118, someone will come in a van and take your dog and it'll wash it for you. Like, every single facet of life
is viable.
And, it used to be, it didn't matter how much money you had. If you got malaria, you died. But now, if you have money, you can be saved with a lot of things. It's life or death. And so then what we're saying to people is there's this thing, and it's called money, and we'll pay it to you, but we need you to be super honest and ethical at all times. And I think we've proven that people...
They don't.
Not only don't they become different bad people because they're pursuing it. I mean, it's just like it's like LeBron James with China. You know what I mean? Like, LeBron James never stops talking about human rights, but he can have a couple of sweatshops making his sneakers. Is LeBron James a bad guy? I don't think he's a bad guy, but money is forcing him to then yell at the guy from the Spurs who said something, or the Mavericks or whatever, who said something about China, right? Right, but Rockets, it's somewhere in Texas. The point is they have too many franchises.
John Cena was my favorite one. He actually learned Chinese to apologize.
Right, apologize in Mandarin.
Yeah, I'd say never apologize. I've never apologized for a joke. I never will.
So, is John Cena a bad guy? Is LeBron James a bad guy? No, but money has impacted them in making them into bad people and forcing them to do things.
And it's changing their behavior to become unethical.
Right. And so here we are.
Yeah.
And
they don't change it overnight. It's a little bit at a time, until you got nothing left and you're Gavin Newsom.
Right. All right.
That's what happens.
What else?
Oh, so Rob, you brushed on this earlier, but I do want to get your thoughts on RFK Jr. announcing that he's going independent.
Well, I mean, I was talking to him about, first of all, 4 years ago, I said, if you ever run for president, I'll stop everything and I'll help you. And then he's running for president, so I didn't stop everything and help. But I did some fundraisers for him, because at least he's talking about stopping the revolving door between industry and the regulatory boards. I mean, you can't have it. You can't have somebody, Julie Gerberding, the head of the CDC vaccine division, leaves there and goes and makes $40 million in her stock or whatever from Merck. You can't have that. I don't know exactly the number on that, but she did make millions of dollars from that. We have to have a health agency that is going to protect the health of Americans, not the health of the pharmaceutical industries. Because what you're really talking about before, if you take it further, you can have an industry that can buy every state legislature like Pharma does. Not just the feds, not just in the federal, not just the federal senators and congressmen, but state. Like what they did here in California. That's how I got first. They tried to cancel me with Big Pharma, because they were paying to eliminate parents' options to, if they didn't want, if let's say they had one kid that was injured by a vaccine and they didn't want their other kid to have to take it. In the state of California, Gavin Newsom and all these scumbag Democrats, who it's a super majority of Democrats, they take all this money from Pharma, and that's what funds their campaign, so they're not going to go against it. And so then the California Medical Association, which is another group of unbelievable scumbags, these people are completely corrupt. And what they've done is they've forced their way to force people to do things that they don't want to do. And we've gone from a society, and if they want to talk about this, they've gone from a society now where you have, and this is an old 10-year-old statistic, and the NIH doesn't give it out anymore, 54% of American children suffer from chronic illness. That is unheard of. I'm talking about childhood diabetes. I'm talking about childhood rheumatoid arthritis. I'm talking about ADHD. I'm talking about asthma. All these peanut allergies. You didn't have one kid who had peanut allergies.
We would have beat the shit out of him with a peanut butter jelly sandwich if you had one.
And then you have this. So at least he's talking about this. At least it's going to, because it's talking about improving the health of people, of Americans, so we can get.
I agree with him on this. I agree with you on this. It makes me, this clip keeps coming to mind, and Dawson, you may have it somewhere, but remember I came in like 6 months ago with those two ladies, one a doctor on MSNBC, talking about hair relaxer how it affected black women.
And then it turned into
turned into a commercial for a pharmaceutical.
Wow. Yeah. They create a problem so they can come up with a drug for the other problem.
Literally, it's called an integration. It's literally, you two bitches talk about hair relaxer for 2 minutes and then spend 4 minutes talking about the importance of getting your children vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting there, it's only like 6 months old. I was like, you shouldn't vaccinate a 6-month-old kid.
I know,
why are you doing? And one's a doctor. But literally the subject matter was hair relaxer, and they spent less time on the stated subject than they did on getting your kids vaccinated.
My friend, Dr. Larry Pilevsky, Dr. Larry Pilevsky, who's a board-certified New York board-certified pediatrician, he said what turned him off against just this blatant vaccines, like, when you and I were kids, it was 4, 6. Now there's 69 different shots, 69 different doses of 14 vaccines before the age of 6. And what's going on with our kids? Can we look at that first? But the one that got his attention, and a lot of people's, including mine, was this hepatitis B shot, which if your wife doesn't have it and you don't have it, there's no, you get it from drugs or from sex. From drug addiction or sex. That's what hepatitis. But what happened was Merck made this thing in the late 80s for a teenager kind of drug or for sex. No one was taking it. And Merck said, and you can look it up in the New York Times in 1990, they said, we're not going to spend $1 billion making something, and if adults won't take it, we'll put it on the childhood schedule. And that's what they did. And that got my attention. So we're doing this not for the health reasons of children. We're doing it for the financial reasons of pharma. And that got my attention. That got a lot of other people. And once you know that, and then you don't want to talk about it, or you won't bring it up, and you're a doctor, and most of the money coming from pediatricians is from this, then you go, wow. So we have to question it. And if you care about children, that's my thing. If either you care about the pharmaceutical, their money, their bottom line, or you care about the health of children in America. And that's why I support Bobby Kennedy, because at least he talks about this, wants to do something.
This be another one of my mom's flip side progressive things. Now you guys have become the lefty progressives have become champions of big pharma.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. My mom
that happened.
Thought she could cure everything with the whisker of an old Chinaman's chin
on a full moon
with some eye of newt. Like she didn't trust guys who made aspirin.
Remember they said pregnant women weren't supposed to take aspirin. They got to take this COVID-19 shot that's been tested on 10 mice only. It's like, what happened to the society? What happened to people asking questions? When the fourth estate, the media, no longer asks questions and no longer participates to look out for people, this is what you happen. You have a pharmaceutical takeover of our society.
Well, I wonder if we have that clip. Can we find that? You don't really have to play the first 3 minutes, because the first 3 minutes of them talking about hair relax. It's the second 4 minutes.
I think we have the first 3. Hold on.
I gotta see.
We gotta have both. All right, we'll play the first both.
It is necessary to have hair relaxers, though. Let's be honest.
Well, it's funny. Look at the hair of the woman she's talking to on MSNBC, but I just play it.
Concerning results are being reported from a new study showing that chemicals found in black hair care and cosmetic products have a greater impact on black women's risk of breast cancer. The study found that chemicals called parabens are responsible for the increased risk in black women, but the same results weren't seen in white women. The parabens also promoted the spread of breast cancer cells in the body with a bigger effect in black patients. Joining me now to discuss, MSNBC medical contributor Dr. Ebony Hilton. And parabens are not something that I was completely unfamiliar with before this study, because
black woman.
Often
all right, this is what the bit was. I was just sitting home watching this. I didn't find it on the internet or anything. I was just watching MSNBC.
And what is Zerlina?
That's her name, I guess.
Okay.
And then they get to talking about vaccinations.
How did they get there?
I don't know. While we're talking to...
I'm going to turn to the topic of COVID. On Tuesday, President Biden announced vaccines are now available for kids under the age of 5. I know a lot of parents out there have been waiting forever for this announcement. What do you want to tell them about vaccinating their children under 5?
They don't need it? They don't need it?
Right.
For one, I would hope they see that it did take a long time before this was rolled out, because first, safety had to be verified, and that is most important. The second thing I want them to know is oftentimes this was stated early on that kids are protected, but what we know is that 6 times the number of kids died from COVID
That's
than the
not
flu.
true. That's
this
not
past
true.
year, right? We had 600 children who are no longer with us from 2021.
Do they
because
have
of
any
COVID-19.
other health?
And there's now a method that you can use to help protect your child from being hospitalized and keep them alive to see next year. And there's a saying, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
They won't
Keep
tell
your
you that
kids
those
vaccinated.
kids.
Make sure they're wearing those masks and practice those same mitigating factors.
this is driving
we've
us
been doing now for 2.5 years.
They won't tell you that health.
Rob.
There were
gets
other
better.
health contradictions.
It gets better.
What?
Keep going.
Season, we can already trace. They say, well, you can't tell the long-term consequences of the vaccine. Well, yes, we can. In acute time, I got my vaccine back in December 2020, right? I was the first person at the University of Virginia. We've now been able to track persons like me to see what has happened. Has anything changed? But what we also know is that we're tracking people who have COVID-19, children and adults alike. And what we know is that 1 in every 5 persons who've been infected with COVID-19 now has a lingering disability where their organs, their heart, their lungs, their kidneys, their brain is no longer functioning in the same way that it was before they got infected with COVID-19.
right.
And when you take
You get it right. It's a commercial for Pfizer and Upjohn. It's a pharmaceutical commercial that broke out in the middle of a hair relaxing.
Yeah, it's like
segment.
70% of this segment.
And it was all lies.
Well,
that's all you need to know. MSNBC, everyone.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
All right, Michael Lombardi. He's a football executive. He's been on the show before. He knows everything about football. We're going to. I think Rob's going to eat his burrito out there.
Is he coming in to talk football? I don't know.
You don't know anything about football.
I don't know anything.
No, but Rob Schneider, go to robschneider.com. Date's
you.
coming up. Harrison Opera House coming up this Friday in Norfolk.
Norfolk on Saturday. But hey, thank you, by the way. I got to tell you, because you're one of the few voices of reason the last few years. And I have to tell you that there's not been a lot who have stood up and taken it. And you have. And it is, I'm an honor to be. Before I was just happy to be your friend. Now I feel honored to be your friend because you're a stand-up guy for freedom, and God bless you and thank you. Such an honor to be on your show.
Well,
I'll
as
just
I
be happy.
modestly say to everyone, I don't have a choice. Rob Schneider, I just can't do anything other than tell the truth.
Good, buddy.
Michael Lombardi, next. Well, good news. It's O Rewards Member Appreciation Month at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Get the most out of your membership. Shop, earn points, and get rewards sent right to your phone or email. If you're not an O Rewards member yet, sign up. It's quick and it's easy. You can do it online or in the store if you like. Just ask one of their professional parts people about joining O Rewards next time you visit, and you can start earning points on your first purchase. Sign up for both email and text and get even more out of your membership. And right now, members receive 2 times, 3 times, up to 8 times O Rewards points on select purchases. Those bonus points can help you get to your next reward even faster. You receive a $5 reward for every 150 O Rewards points, and you can use your reward on your next in-store or online purchase. So don't miss O Rewards Member Appreciation Month now at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store and O'ReillyAuto.com. Michael Lombardi is a football executive. He knows everything NFL. He's got a book out called Football Done Right, setting the record straight on the coaches, players, and history of the NFL, and a daily show, Lombardi Line. It's available on VSIN and DraftKings Network. Good to see you again, Michael.
Good to be here. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you having me.
I love football because I felt like every good quality I possess, and there's not a lot, I got from playing a lot of football. And I wish more people played football, especially as they enter the workplace and you have to kind of deal with them because it's the ultimate team sport. It's about sacrifice. And I feel like that's in really short demand, or in demand, I should say, with today's young people. But then there's concussions. So you have to weigh the two. How do you come down on sort of injuries versus character?
Yeah, I do think football builds character. You know, Vince Lombardi said a school without football is nothing but a medieval study hall. And I think he might be right on that. I think it does build character. It builds toughness. I think you see teams that are struggling this year, they have to overcome adversity. I mean, that's something that you have to always try to do in life. Is you're never going to have everything go perfectly, right? You're going to have to overcome adversity. You're going to have to deal with tough losses. You're going to have to deal with hard times. And I think football teaches that, and that's what coaches are supposed to do for the players. The injury factor, I think we're working really hard at it. You know, this year, Adam, if you get a concussion, you're not coming back in a week. Like, they're just not putting you back on the field. It takes 2 weeks to come back from it, which is a good thing. You know, so I do think the new helmets, I think the rules certainly have changed. You know, I wrote this book about players that go back to the 40s, and those guys, I mean, Johnny Unitas, I don't think he threw a pass where he didn't get off the ground and spit blood out. So we've made a lot of changes to the game for the better.
You know what I always think about, because I'm sort of detail-oriented? There was a player, I think it was a quarterback, God, was it for the Colts? He was concussed a couple of weeks ago when he sort of got his back slammed down. Yeah, yes. Colts quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the concussions come not from necessarily helmet to helmet, but having your shoulder blades hit the ground first and your head sort of whip back and slam against the turf. And then I've seen a lot of the new helmets, and they have these sort of crumple zones in them, almost flaps carved into them, where you could see, well, oh, that would give, and that might help in a concussion if your head got slammed back. But then I noticed he wasn't wearing that helmet. There were other guys wearing that helmet. And then I thought, what is the helmet protocol if there's 7 different kinds of helmets out there? And if offensive linemen tend to not get thrown backwards on their back and their head whipped back, but that happens more often to quarterbacks, then shouldn't it be a rule that the quarterbacks need to wear the helmet that has that sort of give flap in the back at the crown of the helmet?
Absolutely, you think so? I mean, look, you can watch the games. These guys don't even wear knee pads anymore.
Right.
I mean, they don't even wear knee pads because they can't move as fast with a knee pad. They're not as comfortable with a certain helmet, so they don't change. I mean, look, you go play up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Now they're playing in Las Vegas tonight, but you play in Green Bay, if you don't wear 7-inch spikes on that grass field they have up there, you'll be slipping all day long. But players don't like to wear them because they feel like they get their feet caught in the grass. So they don't do those things. And it's a challenge. And unless the league and the NFLPA mandate it, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Well, speaking of the league and the NFL, I just watched last weekend my Rams get literally pushed around by the Eagles. And there's a couple things I need to straighten out. I saw more horse collar calls in one game that I've ever seen in my life. And I had my son actually read the thing because the Rams guy grabbed the guy by the shoulder pad, then he grabbed him by the shirt collar, the jersey collar, but not the shoulder pads. And I'm like, I think we need to delineate between grabbing the shoulder pads as a horse collar tackle and grabbing what is another part of the jersey, essentially, and not conflating the two. Thoughts?
I think, look, they don't get that straight. They don't get that. We now have a new crackback block rule, which is interesting. The Chargers last week, when they played the Raiders, they called him on a crackback block, and he was blocking the safety in a run game. So I don't disagree. You know, we have a tendency in the league to arm tackle, to grab, as Lombardi said on the sideline. Like, we're just going to grab tackles, and that has a propensity to grab onto a jersey. But the horse collar was pulling someone down from their shoulder pads, which could ultimately hurt their knee. They've taken some liberalization of the rule and extended it out. And I think they would be better off conferring with one another before they just rule that the guy was a horse collar tackle, because sometimes they don't see it. It was the side of the jersey, or it was just, the shoulder blade, but they make the calls and they stick with them.
Where do you come down on the Philly tush push? where it's just a scrum
I didn't know
now.
it was legal. I was in the league 40 years. I didn't know it was legal. I didn't think you could aid a runner from behind. I mean, hats off to Philadelphia. They run it better than anybody. I mean, the Giants try to run it, and it looks like a one-armed bandit doing it. It's ridiculous. But the Eagles do it. You saw it yesterday. They do it well. I don't think it's good for the game. I think there's too many bodies in there, and I wouldn't want to send my quarterback in there. I mean, the game against the Raiders, they put Justin Herbert in there with a broken thumb, a finger, and he went into the pile like that. I'm not sure that's a smart thing to do. I think this will get overturned. I thought it was going to get overturned last year, taken out of the game, but it didn't. It stayed in. But I never thought you could push runners from behind. Like, this was new to me. Like, I thought aiding and abetting a runner from behind was illegal.
Well, you kind of, yes, there was always a rule that you couldn't push your own guy from behind or aid the runner that way. You could get in front of him and block for him, but you couldn't shove him because maybe there's some version where your biggest offensive lineman just picks up your quarterback and starts trying to run with him on his shoulders or something, because it's not that far away from that. And I agree, and the Philly fans are going to hate it, but I was saying to my son once again, I said, there used to be a rule that you couldn't do this. I don't know if it changed or they started looking the other way, but that is the football I grew up with. You were not allowed to push your own guy across the first down marker.
And I don't remember them changing the rule. I don't remember it. I guess this is an interpretation of it. I don't know. The rule never changed. The Eagles put this in, and when I first saw it, I thought it was illegal. How can they do that?
How is Belichick's legacy tarnished over the last few seasons, and Tom Brady heading to Tampa, and then Tom Brady getting a Super Bowl with Tampa? And, those of us who are of a certain age couldn't even imagine New England being a sort of, look past it kind of game for your team. Unthinkable that Belichick and the Patriots you could pretty much count the win before you look ahead to the Philly game the week after that or whatever it is. And then you start thinking, how much of this was Tom Brady? Like, I used to think it was kind of 60% Belichick and 40% Brady. Now, Tom Brady sort of seems, his legacy grows even more with every sub 500 season Belichick is having, or what's your take?
Well, look, I think we know this. All great coaches need a great quarterback. As I wrote about in my book, Dan Marino went 4 years with the winningest coach of all time and didn't even go to the playoffs. He won one Super Bowl. Warren Moon threw for 28 miles of passing yards.
He played in one Super Bowl. He didn't win it, did he?
He played in one, didn't win one.
Yes, okay.
And so, Warren Moon threw for 28 miles of football of yards and went to one conference championship game. I think it's a lazy narrative to say that Belichick only won because of Brady. He won with Brady. There's no question about that. The first Super Bowl they won against the greatest show on turf, Brady threw for 134 yards. And I think that they ran for 133 in that game. The last Super Bowl they won together, Edelman was the offensive MVP of the game, and the Rams scored 3 points. I think, look, they're struggling. Andy Reid in his last season in Philadelphia went 4-12 after they traded McNabb. We all know you need a good quarterback, and they don't have one right now, and the team has kind of fallen apart because of it. It's hard to replace him. I think they felt like Mac Jones was going to be the guy. That hasn't worked out. But I don't think Belichick has forgotten how to coach. I readily admit I'm a close friend of his. I'm not apologizing for him. The team looks poor. But I don't think he forgot how to coach. I think right now, without a quarterback, it's very challenging to win. The only guy that's won a lot of games in the league without a quarterback is Marty Schottenheimer. He's 8th on the all-time list of wins, 200 wins out of 521 coaches to call himself head coaches. He's won 200 games, only 1 of 8, Adam. If you're 1 of 8, you belong in the Hall of Fame. And Marty had Bernie Kosar, Steve DeBerg, Steve Bono, Joe Montana at the end of his career. Really never had a great one until the 1 year with Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, and Montana at the end of Montana's career.
Correct.
Right. So he was not the one you remember from the 49ers. Internationally, I was watching the games out of London. Now I believe they played 2 weeks in a row in London. Seems like
going to be another one.
Going to be a third
this week.
Yeah, so there seems to be a heavy international push with the NFL. By the way, the crowd was all wearing jerseys and seemed to understand everything. Yeah. They're really going worldwide with this franchise. I mean, with the NFL, correct? And then how long before there's, a Mexican team and a British team, and obviously they have to have their sights on something and goals, and they're pushing it out there. Where are they heading with this?
Well, look, we haven't got to Germany. Back in the day, when in the late 1990s and 2000, the World League was in place, right? And Germany had 3 teams. The Germans love football. They played the game over there with Brady. They stayed there. Brady came back on the field 40 minutes after the game, and they were still waiting for him to come out. Germany's huge. It's even bigger than England. I think that in the next 10 years, we'll have a team in Germany. We'll have a team in London. I mean, look, the franchise, the Washington team just sold for $6 billion. These franchises are worth extreme amounts of money, and no one wants to sell them. So in order for you to get into this exclusive men's club called the NFL, you're going to have to add expansion. And I think London or somewhere there, I definitely think Germany. Germany will support it. It'll be incredible over there. And I think Mexico could do the same thing. Now, how it works out, the travel, all that, I think that was the experiment why Jacksonville stayed over there for 2 weeks to see how it goes. They're coming back this week. They play Indianapolis at home. They'll see how that goes. I think they're doing all the case studies they can possibly do.
Yeah, well, you live in California and you go to New York. It's 6 hours essentially, and you live in New York and you go to London. It's 6 hours. So it's a cross-country flight, maybe, and then some if you're going to Germany, but it's not Australia, and there's a time difference, and you have to kind of work that one out. But it seems pretty doable because there's a time difference in a 6-hour flight when New York comes out to play the Rams or the Chargers. So there's precedent there. What's going on with Taylor Swift? I don't know. I hear a lot of people on my, entertainment shows talking about how this is orchestrated by the NFL. Not that they set them up, but that they're really all in on this. This is a great mitzvah. Not that anyone in the NFL knows the term, but it's a mitzvah for the NFL that Taylor Swift is dating one of their premier players, and they just seem to be taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, no question. And it's just let's face it, football's ratings are incredible. And then you add somebody who has an unbelievable fan base that buys tickets and comes sees her, and even will listen to her music in the parking lot without even getting in the stadium. So those are two worlds colliding, big worlds. And she moves the needle, and so does the NFL. I mean, that's why she's probably never been the halftime entertainment in the NFL, because typically the NFL doesn't pay for halftime entertainment. That they're giving you an 120 million audience, and she really doesn't need it. So it's two big worlds colliding. I don't think the NFL cares about. Look at the ratings when the Chiefs played the Jets the other night. That was one of the highest rated shows ever. It wasn't because everybody wanted to watch Zack Wilson, I can tell you that.
Zack, I don't know a ton about Zack Wilson, but I've seen a thing, and he seems to get a lot of shade thrown his way, and then a lot of it becomes a sort of a societal, sociological thing where he comes from money, and so screw him, he's too soft. And I'm like, I don't know. He played the Chiefs within an inch of their life the other week. How bad a quarterback is he? And has this become much ado about nothing, or is there an element here that I'm missing?
Well, I think 2 years ago, last year, he didn't take any accountability for playing poorly. And in New York, if you have one bad game, okay, 2 bad games, you're in trouble. And he's had a few of those bad games, and he kind of has a indifference to him when he plays. He just kind of doesn't, almost like he doesn't care. There's not a level of intensity. And he's worked hard at it this year. The last 2 weeks, he's played much better. He turned the ball over in the fourth quarter against Denver yesterday, but he has played better. But I think ultimately, it's hard to get rid of a bad first impression, and that's what happened to him. He kind of didn't give the fans a great first impression in terms of caring and endearing himself to the franchise.
The great Dick Butkus died several days ago. Was watching all the tributes on the NFL Network. Just sort of embodied that era of football. I guess if you were to try to capture a snapshot of, mid 60s, early 70s, watching Dick play, just watching him, how he dressed, how he spoke, what he looked like in his uniform back when linebackers were big versus slippery and fast, like they are now. But I don't know if you had any Butkus stories or thoughts.
Well, I wrote about him in the book, and I described him this way. There's so much conversation about could he play today. Back in this day when he played, middle linebacker was the key to the defense, right? It was the heart and soul of the defense.
Yeah.
And any player who immortalizes a number. I know when I was growing up, 51, immediately Dick Butkus. You wore 51, you wanted to be Dick Butkus. And as I wrote about in my book, he was when the ball got snapped to start the play, he was a ballerina. And when the play was ending, he was a bulldozer. I mean, he had incredible quickness to the ball. He was violent. Today, he would be a combination of Micah Parsons and, Fred Warner. He had that kind of ability, and he was tough. And the team rallied around him. I mean, look, you want to talk about having a great draft? That draft that he came out, the Bears picked he and Gale Sayers in the first round.
Yep. Yeah. I was just watching a retrospective of those two guys, and Gale Sayers, who seems emotional, I guess. Gale, he's not wired like a typical jock. He seems to have a little grandiosity, but also he's like thoughtful. And I have never met the man. I'm just basing it on watching him give interviews. Can come to tears pretty easily if you bring up Brian Piccolo's name. I mean, he seems like and also not a guy I've heard a lot from over the years, considering doesn't seem to be, he just didn't go right up into the booth and start calling color and things like that. I don't know what you know about Gale Sayers.
Well, I mean, I think when you watched him play, he was so incredible. Now, he's been gone for, I think he passed away in September of 2020. So, but when you watched him play, he was like a dancer. And he reminded me, or should I say it this way, Tony Pollard's game, when you watch Tony Pollard of the Cowboys, was very similar to Gale Sayers. The problem with Gale Sayers was he got knee injuries. And back then, Adam, the technology of the injuries were so bad.
I know.
He couldn't come back from it. So this is a guy who came back. He had a shorter career. But you talked to, and I wrote about him in the book, you talked to people from when he was at Wichita growing up and how he went to Kansas and how Kansas got him to go to school there when Kansas was a huge football program. Is really remarkable. And he was very likable. He just had that short career because of the injuries that were just hard for him at the time to overcome.
Yeah, he was angry, or maybe a little bitter that they just didn't have the kind of orthopedic surgeons that they have now. Well, here's an analogy for you, Michael, that I think you're going to like. I'm in love with it. I just thought of it. Gale Sayers' biggest game was against the 49ers in the mud, right? And it was raining, and everyone was slipping all over the place, and he was just running all over them, and he was returning punts, and I think he had 6 touchdowns that game, could have had 7. And when you watch footage of Gale Sayers in that game, like returning a punt, everyone else is on roller pins. Everyone else is slipping and sliding, and he's just running right through. Same field, same mud, same water, but somehow he's not being affected by it, right? And I think that's the graceful part of him that is that is getting that. And it's a balance, and I'll liken it to another sport I like, which is F1 driving. So they always say, oh, the best in the rain was Ayrton Senna. You can see footage of him driving at Monaco in the rainstorm, and he's just going faster than everybody. And they're all on the same tires, and they all have the same technology, just like Gale Sayers has the same cleats everyone has. But F1 driving in the rain and returning a punt on a slippery field is the same thing. It's this quick reaction, kind of very minute detail. You press a little harder, you're down on the ground. You go a little hard, you're spinning off the track. Somehow you have an inner gyroscope that is so sensitive that you can either run past or drive past these people in these crazy conditions when you don't have any other advantage other than this crazy balance and this sort of inner gyroscope, if for lack of a better term. And so I think when you see Gale Sayers in that game in San Francisco running all over everybody, you realize that's him at his core, at his best. That's what he had. Just like when you see Ayrton Senna beating everyone in Monaco in a rainstorm, you go, that's the gift.
Right. There's no question. And his feet, even though they were on the ground, they didn't appear that they touched the ground. You know, it's like when Fred Flintstone would start his car, you would see his feet moving, but they never really hit the ground. That's kind of what I saw with Sayers. And one thing about playing in a bad weather, you know where you're going, the other team doesn't. So you have a little bit of advantage as long as you don't slip. And he really could drive and plant without having to drive and plant. He had that ability, like Barry Sanders, to change direction very quickly. And he was always in control, which I'm sure it relates to F1 racing because you got to be in control of the car. And a lot of guys are not in control. And there's an instinct to be in control.
Very, if anyone, forget about whether you like sports or, football or F1. Just go watch Ayrton Senna drive in the rain and go watch Gale Sayers run in the rain, and you should be inspired. That's artistically, even. Forget about sweat and gears. Just sort of artistically inspired. Football Done Right's the name of the book. Setting the record straight on the coaches, players, and history of the NFL is the name of the book, or subtitle. A Lombardi Line, you can go check that out. It's a daily show, and it's available on VSIN and DraftKings Network as well. GM's Shuffle, that's the podcast, by the way, on DraftKings as well. Michael, yes, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I wanted to put Orlando Brown in the book for you, but I couldn't do it, but we'll always remember him.
Well, don't forget the story of the two Jerrys. That's the other one we discussed last time you were with me.
Thank you for having me.
Michael Lombardi, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to be at the Irvine Improv tonight, I think. Is that tonight? No, that's not tonight. That's Wednesday night. Tomorrow night. That's what I want to say. Irvine Improv tomorrow. Yeah, it says it right on the screen. That's my fault. Cobb's coming up, San Francisco. That'll be this weekend, so come on out and say hi. And until next time, Adam Carolla for Michael Lombardi and Rob Schneider and Ami Horowitz saying mahalo. When people are trying to kind of figure out Newsom and his rap and like, what does he do? It's a kind of effective... It's a sort of magic act that is all bullshit, but it kind of works. Okay. You know what I mean? On a lot of people. It's a kind of DJ Khaled. Like, I don't know what the fuck that guy does. He doesn't play an instrument. He's a fat oaf who can't sing, but somehow a lot of people follow along and they kind of like him, This is what, why don't we do it this way? Andrew, I'm going to challenge you.
Ooh.
Andrew likes a challenge. Not physical, mental, or emotional, but other forms of challenges. Go to the Dr. Oz part first, and then we'll hear Newsom, because this is the reality, and then you can hear Newsom. So earlier this year, Newsom was talking about fraud in California.
Okay.
That's January of this year. In April of this year, Dr. Oz was talking about. So a few months later, this is Dr. Oz.
7 hospice owners that were shut down yesterday. To put that in perspective, in the prior 4 years, the governor of California had shut down 4 hospices. We shut down 7 in one night. And I'll get news for you today, Brett. Let's announce and make it clear to everybody, we've shut down already, just in the last 10 weeks, 221 hospices in California.
Wait, in the state of California, 220.
Yeah, in Los Angeles. That'd have been the state, in Los Angeles.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
It's about getting shit done.
Play it one more time. Started a breath earlier, please. Just so we can hear the beginning. Go ahead. Right there. It's good.
We've never seen from an administration. 7 hospice owners that were shut down yesterday. To put that in perspective, in the prior 4 years, the governor of California had shut down 4 hospices. We shut down 7 in one night. And I'll get news for you today, Brett. Let's announce and make it clear to everybody, we've shut down already, just in the last 10 weeks, 221 hospices in California.
Wait, in the state of California, 220.
Yeah, in Los Angeles. That'd have been the state, in Los Angeles.
All right. So now, just a couple months before this is Newsom's response to this. But this is who Newsom is. And this is his game. This is his technique. If you want to watch his sort of sleight of hand, and he's skilled at it, it's a combination of sincerity and righteous indignation. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so damn tired of people getting trampled on in this state.
Yeah.
Damn it. I'm tired of bullying people in this state. Damn it. We need to stand up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a first you reel them in with the propaganda.
Yeah, I'm a real guy. I'm super sincere, and so this is what he does best. If people want to know why he's effective, this is what it is. This is his take on California waste, fraud, and abuse, which, by the way, is going to be a billion, trillion, cajillion dollars. This is how he addresses it.
With Dr. Oz. Might have, well, you're living in Oz. Well, hospice, we've been after that for years and years before Oz was even on the scene. This is purely political. This is not about fraud and abuse. This is about the polarization, politicalization, weaponization, not just a grievance, but weaponization across the board of agencies and weaponization, the likes of which we've never seen from an administration.
7.
Okay. That's what he does best. He takes a subject, which is billions of dollars in waste on his watch in his state, and then gets indignant about it and says, this is an old subject. By the way, the one they do all the time, this is old news. This is old news. We already looked into this. I looked into this. I was the tip of the spear in this. What this is about is lawfare.
Right.
What this is about is weaponization of DOJ.
He tried racism at first, remember? Racism against Armenians.
Oh, right.
You didn't hear that one?
Right.
That was the first move.
Right.
So that didn't stick.
This is what he does. This is why he's effective. He's indignant about this thing that is not about fraud. It's a political attack.
See, everything's about politics for him.
Right.
Everything. So it doesn't matter what reality is.
But you know what it is? It's like, Shapiro says it all the time. He goes, when the Democrats find something, it's a scandal, and then when the Republicans find something, it's Republicans pounce. You know what I'm saying? So CNN go, Republicans pounce on Hunter Biden. You know, well, that's a scandal.
Yeah.
His laptop's a scandal, but the headline says Republicans pounce. Right.
It's interesting.
So it's interesting thing. Now, if that is Donald Trump Jr.'s laptop, then it's suspicious activity on Trump Jr.'s laptop. You know what I mean? But it's not Democrats pounce.
No.
Democrats never pounce. According to CNN, Republicans are the only pumas out there who pounce, right? So it's an interesting way to frame everything. So we don't have to really get in. So this isn't your state is filled with fucking fraud and abuse, this is Republicans' pounce.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can, on an Armenian, even better.
Yeah.
Or some ethnicity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.